Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon Movesets video. Today's video is all about Ludicolo, so let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, abilities, and stats. So to start things off, Ludicolo is a water-grass type Pokemon introduced in Generation 3 that possesses 3 abilities, the first of which being Swift Swim, which doubles this Pokemon's speed under the effects of rain. As for its second ability, it is known as Raindance, which allows the Pokemon to recover HP at the end of every turn while rain is up on the battlefield, similar to the effect of Leftovers. And for its last ability, which is this Pokemon's hidden ability, it is known as Own Tempo, which makes it so that Ludicolo cannot be confused. As for its stats though, this Pokemon has some pretty average to slightly above average stats all around, making it very good at a lot of different things. Defensively, it has base 80 HP, 70 defense, and 100 special defense, meaning that it can be tanky, especially on the special side. And because it's a water type and a grass type, it has access to a ton of utility moves, namely things like Scald to burn physical attackers, and moves like Synthesis, Leech Seed, and Giga Drain to allow it to recover health and keep its survivability up throughout the battle. Offensively though, this Pokemon has base 70 attack, 90 special attack, and 70 speed, which might seem like some pretty below average stats offensively, but because of Swift Swim, we can completely get around its lowish speed stat by just setting up rain, and because of its access to Swords Dance, we can even run it as a physical attacker, even though the most common way that you're probably going to see Ludicolo is going to be as a special attacker. So with that, let's take a look at the first moveset that I have for you in this video. So for this first moveset, I'm going to be showing off what is probably the most commonly seen Ludicolo set, which is that of a Raindance Sweeper. So we're going to start this one off by going with a Timid Nature to increase its speed but lower its physical attack, the ability Swift Swim, and going with an EV spread of 4 defense, 252 special attack, and 252 speed EVs to give it its maximum special attack and speed possible. And then to enhance our offensive abilities even more, we're going to be running the Life Orb item to increase the damage of all of our attacks at the cost of losing 10% of our health every time we damage our opponents. But for the moves on the set, the first one that we're going to go with is going to be Raindance as a way to set up rain on the battlefield, activate our Swift Swim ability, and then allow us to have even more powerful stab water moves, which for purposes of the set are either going to be Hydro Pump or Scald. Hydro Pump for the greater power, though you do have to worry about its accuracy a little bit, whereas Scald has less power, but has that 30% chance to burn, which can be useful every now and then. So depending on which one you go with, you're still going to be stuck with a really reliable and powerful water type move under the effects of rain. As for your secondary grass type stab, we're then going to be running Giga Drain, which will help a lot with a Life Orb recoil, even though it is less powerful than Energy Ball, but this does give this Pokemon significantly greater survivability and allow it to potentially use more attacks with the Life Orb because you're going to be recovering health with this move as you damage your opponents. And for the last move on the set, we're going to go ahead and go with Ice Beam to give this Pokemon some additional type coverage, specifically allowing it to hit grass types super effectively that its stabs fail to actually hit for any sort of neutral damage because they're both resisted by grass types. Additionally though, you could potentially run Focus Blast, but I think Ice Beam usually gives greater coverage overall, so that's the one that I would go with for purposes of this moveset. Up next, I have a Sun-based set for Ludicolo to run that is now possible as a result of the introduction of the Z Crystals. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Timid Nature to increase its speed but lower its physical attack, going with the Own Tempo ability this time, and then an EV spread of 4 defense, 252 special attack, and 252 speed EVs to max out its special attack and speed stat just like before. As to the moves though, the first one on this set is going to be Sunny Day, which is going to be used in combination with Furium Z, the new Z Crystal, to set up Sun on the battlefield and also provide Ludicolo with a +1 speed boost, thus increasing its sweeping potential. And going along with the Sun theme here, our first attack on this set is going to be Solar Beam, which is a move that I have actually never seen used on Ludicolo before outside of this set, because you always see him in rain, and Solar Beam doesn't really work that well in rain. So in addition to this, then we're going to be making use of Hidden Power Fire to give you a good powerful fire type attack that is also going to be boosted by the rain, which is super great for this Pokemon. And then for your last move slot, going with an additional coverage option of either Ice Beam or Focus Blast, both giving you some pretty cool type coverage all around between the other 2 attacks that you have on the set. And it's very interesting running grass, ice, and fire type coverage on a Pokemon because you can just hit so many things super effectively, but Focus Blast can be especially good there as well for other steel types and things that you might be matched up against. Moving on to the third moveset of this video, we're going to be running Ludicolo as a physically offensive attacker. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, and then going with either the Swift Swim or the Own Tempo ability, depending on whether or not you're going to be using Ludicolo on a rain team or not, because we're not actually going to be setting up Rain ourselves on this moveset. But for the EVs, this time we're going to run 252 attack, 4 defense, and 252 speed EVs to give this Pokemon its maximum physical attack and speed possible, and then for the item this time going with a Life Orb to again increase our attack power just like on the first moveset. But for the moves on this set, the first thing that we're going to go with is either going to be Fake Out as a way to give us a nice priority attack that's going to flinch our opponents every time we switch Ludicolo in, or Swords Dance as a way to boost its physical attack by 2 stages if you plan on leaving Ludicolo in for a few turns to allow it to kind of be a setup sweeper. But for its main attacks, Waterfall will be its main water-type stab move, and Seed Bomb will be its main grass-type attack, overall giving you some pretty great coverage. However, because we have another attacking moveset that we can make use of, there are actually 3 really great options that we can go with. The first being Knockoff, because it's the best move in the game, and will get rid of an opponent's item when you attack them, which is very useful utility just in general. We can also go with Ice Punch to give Ludicolo a really great way of dealing with potential grass-type Pokemon it might be matched up against, just like on the first moveset where we ran Ice Beam, because it does allow us to hit the grass type super effectively, whereas your main stab attacks, Waterfall and Seed Bomb, will fail to deal any sort of significant damage to them. But for your last attack option for this 4th move slot, you can go with Drain Punch as well to give us Pokemon a nice fighting type move to make use of that also will be healing you every time you damage your opponents. And that is also really great for, again, allowing you to mitigate the Life Orb recoil that you're going to be taking, and also keep Ludicolo healthy throughout the battle while it attempts to set up and deal a lot of damage. Moving on to a more defensive Ludicolo set, we're going to start this one off by giving it a Calm Nature to increase its special defense but lower its physical attack, and then going with either the Rain Dish or Own Tempo ability, depending on whether or not you're going to use Ludicolo on a Rain team. But for the EVs, this time we're going to max out our HP and special defense with 252 EVs into both of those stats, and then put the remainder 4 EVs into its speed stat, and give us the Leftovers item to allow this Pokemon to recover HP at the end of every turn and increase its survivability. But for the moves on this set, the first thing that we're going to go with is going to be Scald to be our main water-type stab attack. That also has a chance to burn opponents, which is very useful on a specially defensive set, because it will theoretically allow Ludicolo and its teammates to take attacks better from physical attackers as well, which is very useful for this Pokemon. But for your main grass-type stab, again, we're going to go with Giga Drain for that recovery that it provides when we damage our opponents, and also just to have a powerful grass-type move to be able to make use of that also gets the stab boost. For your third move, there are a couple options to choose from here. We can either go with Knockoff as a way to remove our opponent's item, making them easier to handle, or we could go with Toxic as a way to give Ludicolo a reliable way to wear down opposing Pokemon that isn't necessarily just reliant on burn damage, because Toxic can be especially more useful against opposing walls. So this is a really great option to go with as well. But for your last move slot, we can either go with Synthesis to have a reliable recovery move, or Protect as a way to stall out your opponents a lot easier and scout what moves they're planning on going for and things like that. And Protect is especially useful if you're going to be using Ludicolo under the effects of Rain with the Rain Dish ability, because Rain Dish and Leftovers recovery plus Protect for another turn of that gives you back like 25% of your health, which is very significant. And if being used on a Rain team, you're not really going to want to go with Synthesis, since its recovery is actually reduced under the effects of Rain. So that is something to keep in mind. So there's really 2 ways you can really run this in and out of Rain, and there's options to make the most of both of those scenarios. And finally, for the last move set of this video, I'm going to be showing off a great sub-seeding set to make use of with Ludicolo. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Bold Nature to increase its physical defense but lower its physical attack, and then going with the Own Tempo ability. You could also theoretically go with Rain Dish if you're going to be making use of this Pokemon on a Rain team, but because there really isn't any permanent Rain in 7th Gen, and because we're making use of a ton of moves on this set, not just trying to stall out for Rain recovery and things like that, I think going with Own Tempo is more reliable across the board. But for the EVs on this set, we're going to be going with 252 HP EVs to max that out, and then putting 100 EVs in your defense and 156 into your special defense to give you some great mixed bulk all around, more specifically on the special side, but also to ramp up your physical defense quite a bit, as this Pokemon will be trying to make it so that its substitutes are as difficult to break as possible. But for the item on the set, we're going to be going with Leftovers again for that essential recovery at the end of every turn. As for the moves though, the first 2, as the title of the set suggests, are Substitute and Leech Seed. Substitute to get you behind a protective barrier to shield you from attacks and statuses, and Leech Seed to put up a quote-unquote status or Leech Seed on your opponent that will allow you to recover HP at the end of every turn as you leech theirs and increase your own. And the reason why this combination works so well is because Substitute makes this Pokemon difficult to deal a ton of damage to, and Leech Seed will theoretically be recovering the health that you're losing when you make a Substitute, thus allowing you to keep rinsing and repeating this over and over and over again until your opponent faints or switches out. But to enhance this ability even more, we're going to be making use of Scald, which is a great move that most other Pokemon that learn Leech Seed do not have access to, and why Ludicolo is so unique as a Subseeder, because it can actually burn opponents and make your Substitutes more difficult to break from physical attackers, which is really awesome. And also, something that Ludicolo has access to that most other Subseeders do not have access to is the move Ice Beam, which is an especially effective move against opposing Grass-type Pokemon that are immune to your Leech Seed, and obviously are going to be taking not very effective damage from your Scald. But if you do want to go with another stab option, Giga Drain is always there to give you a reliable Grass-type move to make use of that will also be recovering health, potentially also increasing your ability to set up Substitutes. But anyways, everybody, that is it for this video on Ludicolo, one of my favorite Pokemon. So thank you all for watching, and as always, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.